What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Anti-Gravity Group podcast. My name is Braden Carlson.
I'm Taylor Jesse.
And today it's a big day for the Anti-Gravity Group podcast. We have our first guest joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Amy Howell, go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Amy Howell. I am president of the Kloudbusters and also a AAA board of directors member.
That's right. And if you're familiar with the Anti-Gravity Group podcast, you probably recognize Kloudbusters as the club in Argonia, Kansas that we're so very fond of. So, yeah, obviously that probably adds up how we met Amy was at Argonia lunches. But, yeah, so we figured we wanted to have some guests on the podcast, and Amy reached out and said she has better mic quality than Matt. And I was like, well, that's all it takes.
The bar
being a board
is
of directors
pretty low
member,
there.
being on the board of directors and the president of Kloudbusters is nice and all, but really just the mic quality is what we're after here. But so basically we're going to kind of give you the rundown of what we've covered about ourselves on the podcast and throw you some questions that are going to give people an idea of who you are and what you do in this hobby.
Sounds good.
So the first one is pretty broad, but it's how long have you been in rocketry and how did you get started?
Oh, man. I've been a AAA member for 18 years now. And I got started because I was a camp counselor at the Cosmosphere in Hutchinson. And one of my coworkers launched with the Kloudbusters, and I got all excited that there was something bigger than a D motor that I could launch. So I attended one of the launches in Argonia and haven't looked back since.
Do you know how long ago that was?
Like 2006 or 2005, something like that.
All right. Yeah, so it's been almost 20 years deep at this point.
Almost. We're getting there.
That's a pretty cool.
So
after
that first launch you went to, what was the next what happened after that?
Oh, I immediately went to Mark Logan and bought a kit. It was like, I got to get certified. I got to get level 1. So I bought a PML IO.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Did you cert at the next launch, or was there a break there?
Well, considering the fact that I was 17 when I bought the kit, I didn't find out until the next launch that I technically couldn't certify until I was 18. So I had to wait and launch it the next fall when I started college.
That's agonizing. I did the same thing when I was 14. I messaged Vern Knowles. I was like, I'm ready to get my level 1 now. No, I guess I was probably 12, but he's like, yeah, about that. But, well, what motor did you use? You said PML IO.
Yeah, I used I believe it was an H123 or something like that. Like your typical standard.
The classic,
level 1.
Yeah. The all-white lightning cert process is like a rite of passage. Well, actually, okay, while we're on the topic, then you want to talk about your other certifications?
So I think it was a year or a few months or something, a year later, that I got my level 2. I attempted to scratch build a 6-inch, 10-foot tall rocket, but when I flew it, I pulled a bulkhead out of it, so I failed. And then I was like, oh man, I can't let the test go to waste. And so I walked up to Mark and I had my PML IO and I was like, what's the biggest motor I can fit in this thing? And it happened to be a J285. So I turned around and flew it and got my L2 on a J285 on the PML IO.
That's
so
sick.
Gnarly.
Did you do motor deploy?
Yes, I did.
Oh my God. How far away did it land?
It was on the other side of 80th in the field, but before you get to Dixon. So it was out there in that corner section.
Not too bad at all.
It's not. Did you borrow a tracker, or were you able to see it?
Yeah, I had an RF tracker from either Jay or Lance.
Nice.
Yeah, because that probably went
6,000?
a mile. I don't know.
Yeah.
6,000?
Oh, I lost sight of it for sure.
Yeah.
I was just standing there with the tracker waiting to hear the beep of oh my God, it deployed. Yes.
That's a pretty hard flex of a level 2. And what a transition to be like going from a 6-inch diameter 10-foot rocket to just like, all right, fine.
I mean, at that point,
We'll
it was
just
the
go
only other
clean
rocket
out
that I
a side.
had.
That's fair. What motor did you try with the 6-inch rocket?
I don't remember.
Was it like a complete lob shot?
Yeah, it
I-
was
I
I believe it was a Cicerone motor, but I don't remember which one it was.
We reminisce a lot about the days of old where people would fly like I motors in lock bruisers and stuff, and they'd go like 800 feet.
Yeah, you watch like the old Earl Cagle videos and stuff, and you see like the big lock bruiser on an I-284 off a 1/2-inch rod.
And, yep.
Just goes, yeah, kind of sick, honestly. I mean, we don't need to bring back the 1/2-inch rods and everything, but
No,
We get at
do
least
kind of
one
want to.
question every year about, hey, do you guys have a 1/2-inch rod?
I
yeah,
couldn't believe how much people still like seek them out.
being a pad manager, especially at like LDRS, where everyone comes out of the woodwork, and it's like everyone, old guys asking about, well, do you have a 3/8 rod? I'm like, that's a size that hasn't been used in 20 years. We don't have a 3/8 rod.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
we can
insane.
get you some rail buttons.
I was Rick Maschek from FAR told me people like still routinely fly off of the huge rods out there, and like the juxtaposition of seeing like college teams firing thrust vectoring liquid motors and then also people flying 1/2-inch rods is a crazy thing that you're only going to see there. But
I think it's like launch lugs are frustrating. Like getting them aligned in the friction and everything. I can't imagine one like knowing there's other options and continuing to do that.
Yeah, you get one just slightly
'Cause-
off, and you're just going to scrape it all the way
Yeah.
down the rod.
I remember our early rockets had, it was still the era of building with launch lugs. So for a lot of those rockets had launch lugs, and we found out about rails, and we added rail buttons on the other side. So you're like, oh, this is better. Let's have that too.
the last rocket I built with launch lugs was an Estes Leviathan, the one I did with the carbon fiber fins. And I was like, I'll just use the launch lugs because it's kind of funny to me. And it was funny up to the point I put it on the rail and they just ripped off when it was a little windy. So I just drilled holes and put rail buttons on it. And that was the last time I considered a launch lug. Although my 7.5-inch Fat Boy does have the huge fake launch lug on it, it would be kind of fun one of these times to fly it off a 1/2-inch rail just because it's capable. But had to do a full-scale launch lug. But anyway, back to Amy. We're really good at just departing from the subject matter entirely.
It's okay.
All right, level 3 cert.
Level 3, I did that at LDRS 27. So that one's fun. I showed up to LDRS 27 with no plans to fly anything, but I had the rebuilt 6-inch scratch build in my car. And Deb Colums was working RSO with me and asked me why I wasn't going to fly anything and if I ever wanted to do my L3. And she talked me into like taking the upper half of that 6-inch rocket and then going around the field to different vendors and purchasing all the components that I needed to build a new booster section to do my L3 on the field.
That's so sick. That's like a lot of people in rocketry now will probably be a little confused by the concept of that story. Except for, I guess, technically that you would have had approval from your TAPS before you started building it. But there was a time where you could even use a rocket that was already built for a level 3 cert if TAPS signed off on it. So you don't see that anymore.
No.
Like, when we went to Airfest in like 2012, my dad was there to do his level 3 and it was with those same rocket he used for his level 2, and he just talked to 2 TAPS and was like, hey, here's this, it flew on a 3 grain L, can I use it for my level 3? You have any pictures of how it was built? Yep. All right, cool, good to go. It was it was my level 3 was like right at the end of that era, because I remember buying the kit and Jason Griffin was one of my TAPS, and he was like, this is my express written permission for you to start building the rocket. I was like, what is this? So refined now.
Yeah, and then she recruited another TAP because I had no idea who any other TAPs were. So she recruited James Russell as my second TAP. And they
Nice.
watched me build it under the registration tent for 4 days, and I flew it on the very last day of LDRS on an M1882.
Oh wow.
That's so sick. That's probably going to be up there for one of the coolest level 3 stories. But sorry, Taylor.
Mine's not that cool. I mean, it's pretty.
It was just cool that you did them all in one weekend.
Yeah. But the flight itself wasn't anything special.
Yeah, just a 4-inch rocket on M1297. It's literally everybody else's level 3 now. Mine included.
Yeah.
I'm not bad.
At the time, though, people weren't really doing that, but it was starting to become the thing because it was affordable.
There was like an unwritten rule that flying high for your level 3 was insane.
But back then, it was still like, that's going to go pretty high. You sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm sure.
All right. Well, now that we've introduced you and got all that out of the way, we're gonna move on to the next thing. We got what are you working on this winter? What are your winter rocketry projects?
So I've got a few crazy projects in the works with a group. I'm working with Ben Murdoch, Josh Anderson, and Mike Tarisic from Locke. So we've got 2 big projects. We're working on an upscale Miranda.
Oh man,
Taylor's gonna lose his mind.
Man,
wait, are you flying it at LDRS by chance?
I believe the plan is to fly it at Thunderstruck.
Oh, okay. Dang, I was really hoping you'd say LDRS because
how
Taylor's.
Big?
So it's a 7.5 inch.
Damn, that's gonna be pretty cool.
We may have gone a little stupid with this, but 6 fins, and it's got a center 75 with 6 outboard 38s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cluster stuff.
I mean, yeah, you're talking to the people that for some reason put 9 motors in an Arceus for no reason.
Yeah,
so
7's kind of like
you don't have to tell us
zone.
about stupid. We got that under control.
Yeah, don't go to 9. 7's plenty, actually.
Yeah, that'll never again.
That'll be really sick. I was really hoping you say LDRS because Taylor seems to think he's not gonna go.
I might.
I mean, we could probably be talked into taking it to LDRS and flying it there.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we like to hear.
So the
I
other
already booked the
project,
hotel.
nice.
Sorry, go ahead.
That means you have to go now, Taylor.
See, thank you. I'm glad there's some sensibility in this room finally. Because Postar thinks he's not going either, so they gang up on me. So it's nice to have someone on my side.
Maybe. We'll see.
So the other project we're working on is a 6-inch carbon fiber rocket with a center 98 in it. And we're going to... Deb Colums gave me a research in motor at Balls last year, so we're going to fly her purple motor in that one first. And then we've got plans for some other pretty large 98 millimeter motors that we have to fly in it. I'm
a big fan of purple propellant.
I think we're planning on hoping to take it to Balls and hit, over 20,000 feet with it, hopefully.
Nice. Taylor's definitely coming to Balls, but yeah, that should be a super good flight. I almost proceeded on to the next thing because that was a really good segue, but I did want to ask real quick, what motors are you guys planning on putting in the Miranda?
So we haven't decided on the central one yet, but we're thinking we're going to air start 3 and then air start the other 3. And so we're going to do like skid marks, and then we're thinking maybe like some smoky Sams or something like that. Something that leaves a really nice smoke trail that you can see from the ground.
See,
Yeah,
we like
cool.
We like that too. You can't like people that air start or staged like a Warp 9 motor. I'm like, what? I mean,
the worst
fine,
is the air started Blue Thunder. But I love Blue Thunder, but like light it on the ground.
Yeah, you want to experience it. Yeah, you can't be air starting Blue Thunder. That sounds super sick though. But,
see, that would be like what the central one would be, with something cool, something with a cool flame.
Yeah, real brutal hit, and then the air starts. Yeah, that's the way to go.
Super cool when you go from something that hits hard with not a lot of smoke to just like super smoky. It's really cool.
Alrighty, well, I'm gonna backtrack us to balls here for a second because I don't know how touchy of a subject it is, but the next thing on the list is what are your failures in rocketry, and I did get to film one of them.
Man, that one was epic. Oh my god,
It
that
was
was
so
such a
good.
cool failure.
It was so close too. Well, go ahead and explain it, and then I've got.
So somebody told me that you can't fly basically a naked cardboard rocket on an M or an N. And I was like, oh, challenge accepted, right? Okay. So I call lockup and I'm like, what? Like, give me a level 3 kit that I can build and take the balls. And so, of course, Dave and Jay and Mike get to talking and they're like, oh, well, we could turn this into a new kit. And so it ended up turning it into the Force 10. And I got Gary Dickinson to help us with a research in 2500. And it just turned out to be a balls project.
It was super. That motor was awesome looking too. My favorite part is that because it failed right at the top.
Yeah.
Like you can see it should be in both the fail compilation and the balls video if you care to dig for it. Right at the top, the nose cone just folds over a little bit. And I was talking to Mike afterwards, and he's like, that was the one spot that I can't remember if he said Dave or Jay, but one of them consciously decided not to reinforce the inside with a stiffy coupler in there.
Yeah, they put just a regular coupler in there.
So it was super funny because like a week after balls, while I was working on editing the videos, Mike messaged me. He's like, do you have any photos or like screenshots from the video, or can you send me the video, because they don't believe that that's where it failed. They like refuse to accept it. So I like punched in and like played it back in slow-mo. I was like, looks pretty clear to me, but any intentions on giving that a shot again?
So that is the plan. We are gonna do a revenge flight on that one of balls. And
it is really weird to see people not understand that it is very possible to fly M and N motors and cardboard rockets, like as if it never happened before, as if like every person in the 90s basically didn't do that for their level 3. So there's even a tap I heard talking about someone doing level 3 with a cardboard rocket, and he was like shocked that somebody would want to do that. He's like, I don't know, it's kind of risky. And he's been around since like the early 90s. I was like, you saw it happen all the time, right? Like you've been in this for a long time. So yeah, it's interesting there. I mean, obviously cardboard and plywood do have a speed limit. We've all seen it many times, but it's a little bit higher than folks tend to think. And yeah, I would love to take that on too, like a 5.5 inch rocket, especially on like a 3 grain M or 3 inch M.
We've just kind of lost the context, I think, because it's been long enough, and so it's like you don't have that reference point of that the like that much happening around you of people doing that stuff. And so you see all these fiberglass kits and people adding a bunch of carbon fiber to everything, and it's like, oh, you need that to do this. And it's like, well, you don't really. I mean, it makes it easier, but it can be done. You just have to like make sure all your dot your I's and cross your T's, so to speak.
I was gonna say my L3 was an unglassed phenolic rocket that I built on the field. So I mean, I know it can be done.
That is crazy too. Like that to me feels like more of a gamble than doing a cardboard rocket. Not because I think it's going to fold in half, but just like you hit one like kind of not so soft spot in a field, and phenolic just shatters.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, it was like routinely. I mean, Rocket Man used to sell the big Kahuna, the 12-inch all phenolic kit, and it's like what 24 feet tall or something like that.
I mean, to be fair though, if you look at like John Coker's write up on when he bought one and tried to fly it stock, it like broke like 4 times before he actually got to fly it because it kept falling.
That's what I'm
over.
saying. It's like, yeah, it's like a. I know David Chance. He had the same Honest John kit that I have with phenolic, and like the reason I wanted that rocket was because of his old rocketry forum thread. And like the first post was, He's like, whoopsie, I knocked it over, and there was just a big piece of the tube missing. And like, I did not understand how fragile phenolic was until, because I had only used it like small stuff. So the first time I had a big phenolic tube, I went to set it down and just crunched the end up a little bit. I was like, wow, they weren't kidding, huh? This is it's so good, but like, I
think
always advise that people glass phenolic, and I don't necessarily always advise people glass cardboard.
I do.
But I mean,
Well, I would agree
Go
to
ahead.
always glass phenolic, but I will say that I think modern phenolic has less resin in it, so it's a little bit less brittle, but not like it will still break, but not like before where you look at it funny and it just shatters.
Wow, he's calling out public missiles right now.
It's a
Unbelievable.
good thing. It's a good thing. It's not like it makes it more flexible.
I mean, I will
Yes,
say,
sir.
what a better place to confetti a rocket than balls. I mean, at least you can see all of your confetti on the playa.
Yeah. I hadn't even considered that until this year. Did you see that guy's M1800 Kato where
Yeah.
it sounded like a grenade? It was so bad. But I was like, you know what though? Like, I can see every piece of your rocket. This is nice. It's real easy to clean up.
I mean, I can't imagine doing that in Kansas and having to trudge through like a soybean field or a Milo field to pick all of that up. Oh my God.
Yeah, unfortunately I've never had anything spread out like that. I've definitely destroyed rockets, but it's usually for a lack of a parachute coming out, so everything's pretty well contained. But yeah, I've never had to like go on a little Easter egg hunt for all of my pieces of a rocket, and I'm pretty grateful for that.
So I will give props to Altus Metrum though. The Telemega that I had in the Force 10 still works.
Wow.
That's crazy. How hard did it hit? Was it like
I mean, it was on a big like plywood board, so it kind of just all of it shredded around and then it just fluttered back down. But it did
I was gonna
rip.
say, 'cause
It ripped the battery out and ripped both ejection charges out of the terminals, and it still works.
that's crazy. Because yeah, I was gonna say there was no like big piece of that rocket left. If you watched them, it wasn't like a folded over and kind of zippered things. It was full blown confetti.
Yeah, the biggest pieces were the insides of the fins that were still attached to the motor mount that Gary's case was in. That's the biggest pieces that were left out of it. Oh, and
How'd
the
the
nose
case
cone was
fare?
still fully like good because it just kind of like folded off first.
Yeah, it just had like a nice little leisurely ride down. How'd the motor case handle it?
Oh, it was perfect. There was no damage to the motor case whatsoever.
That's always good. That
As
was
I say, it made me feel pretty good, so I don't have to buy Gary a new research motor case.
right. Yeah, exactly. I flew that. John Clifton made me an N that I flew in my V2, and it had this huge thrust ring like machined into the case, so we couldn't put the aero pack on, so I friction fit it, and
Ooh.
I did a really good job to the point that we couldn't get it out, and Taylor had to take it back to his house and use a come along to get it apart. After we hit it for like 3 hours with a 10-pound sledge and a 2x4.
Yeah.
Hopefully John's not listening to this. The wood was on your case. It was never in danger. But
Yeah, it was a 2,500-pound come along, and it came out millimeters at a time. It was like under tension for 2 hours between two trees, and and the bulk plates held on his rocket because I hooked like a cord to the U-bolts on the top centering ring, and put it to the tree, and then hooked the come along to the motor case and just started cranking on it.
yeah, I feel like West Systems, that's a testament to that epoxy strength.
Yeah.
Because after that, and after we were just hammering on the motor assembly, we decided it was wise to put an M2500 in it, because it was the motor we substituted out for the Punisher flight that we thought was going to blow up. And it was fine. It took it. So I'm like, all right, well, I don't know if I can credit myself for the build quality, but I can certainly credit West Systems for the epoxy quality, because that thing is beefy.
I was impressed because I thought for sure that was gonna be it, and we're gonna be like, well, just gonna have to destroy the rocket to get the case out.
Right, and that's why I bring it up, because I was like, it's like the rocket, whatever. John needs his case back because I can't afford to buy
his
that.
case with sentimental value too.
Yeah,
he said it was his oldest case or something.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, this, I can't remember who he said made it, but it like had a crazy custom nozzle too. That was like, it was like a nozzle carrier, like weird system that's not like every other case. So I was like, if I broke it, like, let me know, I'll pay for a new one. And he's like, well, who's gonna make a new one? I was like, I don't know, John, but like, we'll figure it out. But it all worked out in the end, so that's good.
So one of my other failures, Braden, was actually caught on film too by Rockets magazine. At LDRS 28, I lawn darted a Kloudbuster rocket.
Oh wow!
Oh, you did the old Bob Brown?
That was
Sorry,
Taylor
Bob.
that said that. Yeah, I was gonna say, leave me out of this one.
Well, I believe he did it many times, but anyway.
I mean, Bob is the creator of the kit, so I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to do all the prototyping.
Yeah.
Gotta get the recovery.
I just remember the
sequence
video.
down right.
There's multiple Rockets magazine. Anyway, I'll let you talk. Not important.
So are those your only like major failures?
So the other one is I have a Blue Demon from Tim that I put a 75 millimeter motor mount in it instead of a 54. And I had Jay Holcomb make me a research motor for it. And not this October, but the October before at the Fun Fly here in Argonia, I was supposed to fly one of Jay Holcomb's research blues 6 grain. And it KO'd on the pad and shot the motor through the rest of the rocket, through the av bay and into the nose cone. Like all of my electronics were nothing but like just confetti in the nose cone. It took the all threads and Z folded them, and it was nuts.
I had one of those last year. My 4-inch Punisher shot the motor through both basically exactly what you're talking about. Both aluminum bulk plates disintegrated.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any electronics, or maybe we did, but they were like little pieces. And then the all thread that's all Z folded.
It shoved all my electronics into the nose, and I just dumped out this pile of like altimeters, and I was like, well, guess I'm not using those again.
Yeah, my K455 that just came in ballistic, I had the pieces in my garage up until like a week ago, and I was kind of digging through because it didn't KO, but it's everything kind of got compacted in a similar way, but I pulled it all out. So I grabbed a piece of it, and just a bunch of pieces of red PCB came out, and I was like, oh, stratologgers are so hard to get. Just watching this red confetti come out.
See, and that one was like the first flight of that Telemega that I had. It was the first Telemega I bought. It was the first flight of it.
Oh, God.
And it was just pieces in the nose cone. I was like, oh.
Such an expensive altimeter to destroy. My God. Also, I wanted to address real quick. There's a guy in... who left a comment on one of the most recent podcasts that asked us to be a little more specific about the things that we're talking about. And he asked if I could put links in the description. I'm going to try to do it. But just for a little clarification here, the Telemega, the Altus Metrum Telemega is a flight computer. And pretty much any time we say the word or the name Tim on this podcast, we're referring to Tim from Wildman Rocketry. Yeah, there was a note we were given from the top, and then to see it backed up by somebody specifically asking for it, I was like, yep, should have known it was coming. We're not professional podcasters, all right? We're really not professional anything. We're doing what we can here, but all right. So we're gonna move on to the next one then. This is a kind of a loaded question, so feel free to wax on it and interpret it how you like, because mine was just a shop. But what is your dream rocketry project?
Oh, man. Don't know. I honestly
don't
know.
You haven't had something you just have thought about? Not necessarily a dream project, but just like, wow, it'd be cool to do that.
Yeah, something just like a flight that you could do like finances disregarded.
Finances disregarded.
Yeah,
So it doesn't
unlimited
necessarily
money.
have to be super realistic. Just like
Right.
I mean, finances disregarded, and if it would actually work, like Estes had the old SR-71 kit. It would
Oh,
be
yeah.
cool to upscale that just massively, just stupidly.
Yeah, that was sort of like, I think mine was a upscale Bowmark, like huge.
Yeah.
It's that's sort of in the same vein. Like it would be terrifying and also like super tedious to make, but
I mean,
and
it gives me kind of the creeps, kind of like, oh God, what was that? The Drake. I think it was the Drake that somebody
Oh,
brought.
yeah.
Yeah.
Arizona rocketry. Yeah, that was my first trip to Arconia ever. And yeah, that's if you're listening, definitely take the time to go look that up. There's a great Rockets magazine video on
An
it.
upscale of a Fliskits Drake, right? Is that right?
Yeah, Fliskits
Yes.
Drake. And it was like 34 feet long. It's really goofy shaped and it has like huge. It had like a 20-foot wingspan or something like that. And yeah, it was a 6-inch motor. That wasn't a Pat motor, right? Who made that motor?
No, I think somebody in
guess
Arizona did.
One of those Arizona guys, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it without spoiling too much of the flight, you don't get to see what the motor was supposed to do, really. I can tell you that much.
You talk about an epic failure. Ooh.
Yeah, like I said, my ultimate rocketry dream project on that particular podcast was just like having a shop with like unlimited rocketry supplies that I could just build whatever I wanted right when it comes to my mind. But yeah, as far as like a specific project, I still really for some reason want to do a full scale iris, even though it would be wildly tedious. But just a fin span would be absurd. But it would be pretty cool to have a 12-inch iris.
The fin can would take up your entire living room.
So
Yeah,
are you hand making that nose cone, or are you finding somebody to do it for you?
Yeah, this is a big problem we're running into. I could maybe convince Taylor that if I brought it back painted nicely, I could borrow the 12-inch Punisher nose cone for a second.
No.
I own 1/3 of it, so I would rely on Matt's vote to allow it to happen.
Well, you can use 1/3 of it.
So when you only bring back a third of it, how upset is Taylor gonna be?
No, he'll bring back 2/3 and be like, "Here, I give your part back."
That's the part. The funny part too is he doesn't want me not to use it because I would have to paint a different color. He doesn't want me to use it because he's afraid it won't come back. Even though it could just as easily not come back on a Punisher flight.
Well, yeah, but that's
So to answer the question,
the
yes,
rocket.
I would be making my own nose cone, I guess.
Hey,
That's all
we
right.
made
I'll
our
just-
own nose cone for the Arcus, and that worked out fine.
It did work out really fine. I'll just 3D print it in like 190 pieces. And just super glue it together, baby. CA is my best friend. All right.
Perfect.
All right, this is one we touched on as well pretty recently. What is a rocketry? What are your rocketry resolutions for 2024? We kind of just like I don't even is resolutions just like interchangeable with the word goals. I don't. It's
Sure.
what
Not
do you want to do
necessarily, but
this year?
it's kind of used like that. So
Right.
So one of them, obviously, the Force 10. I want to prove that you can put an end motor in an unglassed an unglassed cardboard rocket, and it worked just fine. And then, so I won a T-Lock kit at Airfest last year, and I already have one that has a 38 millimeter motor mount in it. So I was like, I guess I'll put a 54 millimeter motor mount in this one and just see what happens.
A 4-inch T-Lock?
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's sick. Are you gonna glass that?
No.
Oh man.
I think it has 1/8-inch fins, right?
I think so.
So, yeah.
You could do like a long burn. It would probably be fine.
I mean, clearly I'm not going to throw, a VMAX or some.
1103. Yeah. Yeah, like a J135 though. That could be cool.
Yeah, it's more for like the shock factor of like, somebody reading the flight card like, and we have a J285 and a 4-inch T-lock. What?
Yeah, it's great. It's like all the modified Estes kits and stuff. Like Taylor's Fat Boy. I've really kind of been on a kick of wanting to do another 54 millimeter Big Daddy because I built one when I was young and never flew it. It was carbon fiber.
Me too. It
I
never
just
left my
copied Jim
garage.
Jarvis. Yeah, my epoxy never cured because I didn't have any money, so I had used some chopped carbon that I ordered from Tim and mixed it into like, I'm pretty sure it was like 5-minute epoxy or 30-minute Bob Smith, and used it for fillets, and it just never cured.
Mine just had some janky centering rings that I cut with my jigsaw, and it was one of those where I should have tried again, but I did it anyway because I was like 13, but I was aware of it, so it was like, you're like, yeah, this just isn't gonna fly.
That's good that you had the foresight, though, because a lot of people try and fly rockets that should have that consideration and just don't.
What's dumb is I would build good stuff back then, but there would also be times where I was just like, didn't have anything to do, so I just used what I had in my garage to try to build something just for the sake of doing it. And so there was a lot of stuff that never left the garage for good reason. I'm glad I didn't think like I need to go take this to a launch and embarrass myself. So
yeah, did you ever have that phase, Amy, where you just like tried to turn everything into rockets, or did you? I feel like being almost 18 when you started, you kind of were mature past that whole ordeal.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I was a space camp counselor, so I mean, everything pretty much was about rockets anyways, so.
That's true. I mean, I would like Pringles cans and like just buy $5 sheets of 1/4-inch plywood and try and hand make centering rings with no tools. And yeah, it was
no tools. How do you even do that?
I honestly can't remember what. There's a picture I found of one of my Ralphco crayons, the 4-inch crayon, and I cut the centering
you probably
ring.
had a Dremel, right?
I maybe, I don't remember. Like, I looked at this centering ring and I was like, how did I cut that? I remember the rocket. I remember building it. How did I cut that centering ring? And how did I make another one to the point where this actually worked? I have no idea how I did it. I've maybe drill press at my grandpa's house or something like that. But yeah, that was the phase of like, I have no money and a desire to build every rocket. So it got real ugly.
Not just a rocket. I want to build all of them.
I mean, I kind of feel that being, when I started, I was first in college and, you're on a college student budget, so you can't fly much. I definitely flew that IO all the time. And then Tim, a couple Airfests or whatever, he would have his like, oh, well, build parties where you build it with 5-minute epoxy. And I did that a couple of times. So I had like a Wildman Jr. that I'd built with 5-minute epoxy and a couple other things.
I was glad he did one at the actual Wildman shop for Midwest Power this year. I was trying to film it a little bit, but I also was in it, so I just wound up having like no usable continuity to make a video out of it. But it was basically, it was Wildman and Lock Precision. You paid, I don't remember, it was like $45 or something like that.
Something like that.
You got a 3-inch rocket, you got fins and a motor to like basically everything except for shock cord and a parachute, and you got a motor. Or did it come with shock cord?
It
just didn't
came
have
with
a
everything
parachute.
except no parachute.
I think you had to provide the glue or whatever you were going to use to put it together.
Yeah.
So I finessed that a little bit, because when you do those Wildman build parties and like especially contests, it's understood that it's only cheating if you get caught. So I went up to Jackie, Tim's wife, and said, do you have any super glue? And she went into the house and brought me some super glue before it got started. So I didn't understand the premise of it entirely. But anyway, the idea was you build the rocket, from the point that Tim said go, you take the rocket into somebody who's verifying that you built the rocket. They write that time on the fin, then you go fly the rocket and you go pick it up and bring it back. And yeah, I was just doing that was super, super exciting because I used to love watching all that stuff happen. Like all the posts on the Rocketry forum, I had serious FOMO on all that stuff. So I'm glad it's coming back to a certain extent.
So that's how I ended up with the Blue Demon. Was I did the Gizmo build at Tim's house one night at Midwest Power, and it was to see how high you could get it. And I decided that an L1000 sounded fantastic in a Gizmo. And all you had to have was, you didn't have to have any electronics in it other than like a Jolly Logic altimeter 3 to prove what the altitude was.
Like a regular 5-inch Gizmo with an L1000?
Yeah.
Oh,
it went all the way to the top like the nose cone.
that probably went super hard. That's sick. Yeah, I love those. I kind of want one, but yeah, I really want to see more contests like that. I was thinking about talking to Tim about doing a Wildman and Rocket Vlogs contest for LDRS where my head Punisher punishment contest. It's like an altitude contest with 3-inch Punishers. I think that'd be super cool. I love seeing that, like the LDRS 22 in Argonia.
Yeah.
Where everybody, they had the big canopy full of like lock parts and
From the
everybody
ground
had to
up.
build it.
The ground up.
Build and paint the rocket before it flew. Yeah. Super sick. We need a lot more of that going on. All right. Well, we got one more thing on the list, and then I'm going to let Taylor ask it because he's the one that put it in our little notes here.
Just, you've done a lot with the Kloudbusters on the inside. I was just wondering if there was any insight on what it's like to help put on a big launch like Airfest, or like what, like helping out and stuff for the people that have no idea what that is like.
It takes months of like in advance getting everything ready. So like trash and porter potties and just all the logistic stuff. You plan that all out pretty much for the entire year. So you have to think all the way in advance of, oh my God, we're going to need this many trash carts and this many porter potties. And then you have to think about, well, you need all of this infrastructure to do all that. And so that's why we have rail cleaning parties in like April or May to clean all of our rails so that they're ready to go for Airfest.
I have to say, that is wildly appreciated too. I'm not gonna like throw any clubs under the bus, but there was one that I attended a launch at that
those were the dirtiest rails I've ever used.
Unbelievably dirty. And then I got berated because I was handling my white rocket with this dirty rail, and then it got completely covered. And Gerald Muse Jr. was like, he painted it with white paint and dirt, I guess, into the mic before he flew it. I was like, come on, Gerald, doing me dirty. But yeah, so we really appreciate a nice clean rail.
So I mean, a lot of people, like, they always say that the Kloudbusters make it look so easy. I mean, that's because we've been doing it for, will be 30 years now this year for Airfest. And
that's right, this is Airfest 30.
It is.
Oh wow,
I guess that's yeah, we knew that. That's why we're bringing both the big rockets. Of course.
Yeah. But like at this point for Airfest, I mean, isn't a lot of that kind of like a copy and paste? I mean,
pretty much, yeah. I mean, we make sure all the pad cables are good, all of the boxes work, all the lights work, the radios, everything like that.
How long
does
it take to set everything up? Oh. No. Taylor, go first.
I was just gonna say, every once in a while, I'm sure there's like, oh, this can be improved or whatever, but for the most part, it's just a copy and paste. I mean, doing it so long.
Definitely, there's always like, oh, well, we could, improve this process or this, like, that's why kind of like
little things,
like the procedures for RSO and stuff. Like we've improved those like over the last couple of years.
I really like how it is now.
Run a little bit faster, and then having two big launch trailers like Buster and the Larry Mills trailer that make the
Yeah,
away cell go so much better with big projects.
we're a big fan of having multiple options for big pads.
Do you have any good stories of any sort from working the away cell?
God, yeah, there's a lot.
Do you have any with us?
Well, I know there's a lot of ridiculous stuff that happens, but not necessarily needing to throw anyone under the bus or anything like that. But just,
Right.
I thought maybe there'd be something interesting to share.
I mean, there's been some pretty spectacular Katos. So
Were you out there for Clifton Spool in 2014?
I was not out there for that one.
That was we felt that one from the flight line. Sorry, that was to interrupt you there, but yeah, that one's that's one outstanding when someone says spectacular Katos.
Yeah, Clifton's had a few. I'm not gonna go into details about that, but Clifton's had a few. But he's gotten much better in recent years with his research motors, so I will give him props on that. I will say, like, there's been a lot of things that shred overhead, and so you can see all the pieces like float down into the fields. So people come out to the away cell and they're like, did you see this like come in somewhere? It was, an orange or what, you're just like, God, I don't know. I've seen so many things just kind of flutter in. I don't know. But we were picking up, is that LDRS 38? I don't know. But we were picking everything up, and I was picking up the Larry Mills trailer with Jay on his four-wheeler. And we're bouncing along the 80s road, just rough as all get out. And I can hear this beeping. And I'm like, what is beeping? And so I'm like, Jay, stop. I hear an altimeter. Something's beeping. I don't know. It's like I just hop off the four-wheeler and go like 100 yards out in the field. And there's this tiny Stratologger altimeter that's just beeping away.
Oh
my. I just picked it up. And it was from a Kato. I just picked it up out of the field. And Jay's like, you did not just hear that on a running four-wheeler down the road. And I was like, yep,
that's
sure
crazy.
That's insane that the battery stayed attached to it.
Yeah, it was sitting out there just beeping away.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's wild.
All right, back to setting and everything up. I've always been curious because I see in the Kloudbusters group that you guys go out there and set it up like almost a full week before.
So
for those that are unfamiliar, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say how many pads are out there?
You have you now have the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that's 6 banks of 8.
There you go. So yeah, it's for people who aren't familiar with Argonia, it's a big launch. So yeah,
and then at the 80s you have Buster and Larry Mills with that too. So
yep. So my curiosity was, how long does it actually take to set all that stuff up, and how many people do it?
So we have what's called Setup Sunday, and that's the Sunday before Airfest. And so that's when we drive all of the fence posts. We put all the fence posts for the signs. We put the signs up. We set pads out. Like the only thing we don't do that day is basically run the cables and set the bank boxes out. And that we start that 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and usually we're finished somewhere around 1 or 2 in the afternoon.
And how many people?
30 maybe at the max.
God, yeah, see, the reason I asked for these specifics is I feel like a lot of people really don't appreciate the amount of time it takes to set up and like tear down a rocket launch assembly, I guess. But yeah, having done it to some extent with a very small club in Tripoli, Idaho, I can only imagine the logistics of doing it on a big scale, if not the biggest scale. I don't know of any club that has more pads on deck.
I don't know anybody that does either.
Not now. I wish I lived just a little bit closer so that I could, like, it would be more feasible for me to go down and do stuff like that, because it's just like 4+ plus hours is just a little bit too far to go. Like, it's just like logistically crappy.
I don't know. It sounds like you're kind of being a sissy. I can lean on the fact that I live 25 hours away, but like you're kind of.
I don't know,
You're
Taylor.
kinda-
Corey drives from Texas every time, so I don't know. I don't know what you're
Oh,
complaining
man.
about.
True.
Where's he
that
at
is-
in
Yeah, that is
Texas?
crazy.
He lives just on the other.
Shamrock, right?
Yeah, Shamrock. It's like just on the other side of the Texas border from Oklahoma.
Okay, it's not too bad, but it is pretty far.
It's like a 5-hour drive one way, I think,
Oh
or
my-
something like that.
And he comes every month, right?
Yeah. Well, he's now
Dude,
our
that-
prefect, so
Yeah, I guess
That's true.
Yeah.
That's some dedication. He made it
Is
into
he
one of my
bringing like
shorts
his
as well.
camper?
yeah, he usually brings his camper.
That's a good call. Yeah, that makes a little more sense. I can't imagine like posting up in hotels or just camping out there year round. Yeah, we love Corey. He's in one of my shorts that I most recently posted, but he was in the Arcus video because he went up and talked to the camera after
Oh,
the
yeah, that was
rocket
awesome.
landed on the pad. Yeah, it was like, he didn't tell me he did it either, so I was just sitting there editing and I was like scrolling through it, seeing where it cut stuff, and I was like, "That Corey?" And he's just talking straight to the camera. I was like, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah, you need to tell him to just always talk to the camera if he sees it out there.
Yeah, honestly,
That's
even if the
hilarious.
rocket doesn't land there, just go like leave us secret messages. If you're ever at a rocket launch where I have a pad cam out, just go up and talk to it. Please don't turn it away from my rocket though. That happened to LDRS. We don't need to get into that, but yeah, just go talk to it.
I mean, I feel like that's appropriate, you know.
Yeah.
And the
I
other
love the
thing is, like,
surprises.
with Airfest, we set up all the extra stuff the Thursday right before Airfest. So all of the cables, the bank boxes, you know, the whole system gets tested that Thursday, and we start that at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we usually finish, you know, 5:30, 6 o'clock.
How does it seems like everything's always in the same spot, kind
It
of.
is.
How does that happen?
Bob's really good at knowing where like the entrances to like the roads have been. And if you notice, like, so if you go out there next time and you see the 60s, right? And the road that goes in, like the hill that's on the waterway kind of
Yeah.
dips in right where that road is. So that's where that road has always been forever. And we know the 80s
That's
road
insane.
is right there on the corner, and then the 70s is right there where there's like a big just divot in the side of the field in that where the 70s road is.
I have like never even thought about that.
But you say like drive the fence post, right? So you have to put the fence posts up for the orange fence on the
Yep.
range.
We used to do it all by
How does that
hand,
get
too.
How does that get how does that get roughly in the same spot? Because it seems pretty consistent. Is there like where it starts to fall, like the elevation starts to change there, or is it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Well, I
so
was gonna say-
we have certain sections of that orange fence, so we kind of know how many sections of the fence to go before you start
Okay.
angling it back. Because all of that orange fence isn't just one big continuous; it's a bunch of like pieces, like
I see.
chunks of fence, and we roll them up separately.
I was gonna say that one in my head would have been the easiest thing to get right because you know the 50s pads are right up against the grass and the joint to the dirt field, and then you have to go L distance from there, and that's where it goes.
Well, and if you notice at LCO, there's the wooden pole that the power's at.
Oh
That's
yeah.
the fence line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
How do you guys find that spot every time? That's crazy.
I don't
Tips
even
and
notice
tricks, guys.
that
Tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually just look for the thing that's permanently there. Oh.
Oh. The more you know, you know.
Are those shipping containers out there year round?
Yes, they are permanently there.
I've always wondered about that. I go in every year in hopes that my 54mm rocket's going to show up there. Or I'm going to find Taylor's blue 7680
Yeah.
case.
Hey, I keep hoping for my IO to show back up, but it never has.
Oh, you lost it?
Oh yeah, I lost it.
What a tragic end to that story. What happened?
Oh god, I put a J285 in it, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a cool flight, and I had an RF tracker in it. Somehow, like both, like the wrong pad got selected when the LCO was calling, and so mine went instead of the guys next to mine, and I was not prepared to watch it whatsoever. It was gone in the blink of an eye, and I was trying to radio track it, and I never got the beep. So I don't know if it just like the motor ejection failed, and yeah.
I was gonna say that radio static is unfortunately familiar to pretty much every member of the anti-gravity group. I can tell you that. But yeah, that's a rough one. Well, never know. Maybe someday. I found Justin Farron's ballistic L1000 like a year or two after he flew it. So stranger things have definitely happened. But I actually made one more addition to our list to talk to you about because I wanted to touch on the Argonia Cup a little bit. I'm not sure how many people are even really familiar with what it is. And I'll be honest, I was not familiar with it until last year when I was there for it. So it'd be kind of cool to go into some detail about what it is and what the rules are this year and everything. Because I'm on the fence about figuring out how to get down there for it. We'll see how finances go.
So I will make one more note on big launches. Without volunteer help, big launches don't happen. So if you go to big launches like LDRS, Airfest, volunteer, do something simple, pad manager, whatever.
Yeah, Taylor always makes me feel bad about that because I'm trying to film as many flights as possible, and I always am like, I want to help, but also I want to shoot a video.
If you're a pad manager, you can have your camera still.
That's true. I could get great shots of
and
people
be up
loading
close.
things up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Argonia Cup. It's a collegiate competition. It's been going for 6 or 7 years now. Yeah. So it started as just like a single stage rocket, and clubs or collegiate teams had to land a golf ball back at an X that was on the field. And so that's how it started. And so until we got a team that came, I think they were 3 inches from the center of the X. Like, it was nuts watching this thing come back in. It was crazy.
It was just like one year they figured it out.
Yeah.
Okay. By what means was it like it
was a drone. It was
parachute?
It was like flown first person view drone.
But that wasn't required, right? It was just you just need to get the golf ball there. But they came up with the idea, and I think there might have actually been 2 teams that year, or maybe the next year. But it's like they figured out how to do the drone that they could fly in, and we were just all like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, and one of the teams used like a glider that had home set as the center of the like X that was on the field. And
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
That one came, I don't know, a couple 100 feet from hitting the X. And then there was one that was like a couple feet from the X and then like 3 or 4 inches from the X. And it was nuts. The competition was so close that year. So after they basically mastered that, last year we changed it to a 2-stage competition, basically for altitude. But it still had to be a combined impulse of an L2 motor. And a lot of teams struggled with lighting the second stage and some of that kind of stuff. So we decided to change it this year. It's still a 2-stage competition, but like instead of getting anything back to the field or whatever, it's basically how many golf balls can you loft. And it's it's a function of how many golf balls are in the rocket. And I can't remember if it's the booster or the sustainer. It's one of the 2 that the golf balls have to be in to altitude. And you plug the numbers in and it gives you a score. And whoever has the highest score, basically.
So it's like this many golf balls times this whatever gives you this score type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool actually, because I know was there an altitude limit last year? Or was it just the impulse limit?
I believe last year you had to hit. It was like
think you had to
8,000
get
feet or something
10,000?
like that.
Oh yeah, there was a minimum. That's right.
Yeah, there was
'Cause,
a
I was
minimum.
like, it would that was kind of my thinking. I was like, there's such a big waiver here that like it'd be cool to. Obviously, they're gonna try and keep it somewhat reserved if they have to land on a target. So that'll be super cool actually. Man, I really
But I mean, we're
want
also
to
trying
watch
to make
that.
it. We're also trying to make kind of an engineering competition where they have to like do some, engineering to figure out. Well, do I want to go for more golf balls or do I want to go for more altitude?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
I mean,
that is.
they can sit there and play with that formula and see what they
There's
want to
probably
do.
a sweet spot in there, if you like were to figure it out.
I mean, you're an
Is it
engineering student.
still-
You're supposed to be good at math, right?
Right.
I
Is
mean,
it
that's not
still-
something I could do as an engineering dropout, but that sounds like something that someone can do.
Is it still L impulse limit level 2?
It's still a level 2 impulse limit, yeah.
Okay.
Total.
There's-
So the booster and the sustainer combined have to be under that limit.
Right. So,
So
I mean,
you can't do like an L to an L.
Yeah, but like an L to a full K. Like if you push that all the way, you can get some pretty good altitude. That's how many teams do you have this year? Do you know?
There's 17 so far.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty good.
It's grown a lot. It's pretty
Yeah,
wild.
it has.
Dang. All
And I
right.
think all of our sponsors are back this year, plus Aerotech.
Oh wow.
Dang.
Yeah, I saw a couple of those teams. I saw the map that showed all the teams or whatever, and it's like there's some people coming from really far away.
Yeah, there
Pretty
is.
wild. I'm like, wow, this is like a real thing here.
All right,
Well,
we'll
I
have
mean-
to see. I might be crashing your place again, Taylor. Tagging along.
Well, I'll be there and here.
I mean, plus it's, Kloudbusters, so you have your regular flights. And that's where I'm thinking I might fly the carbon fiber on an in.
Ooh.
My God. All right. I'm
So-
unemployed technically. All right, you can't be doing this to me.
Come on, Braden. Just, you've got all the time in the world. Just drive across country.
That's what somebody was like. Well, are you having fun building rockets at least since you don't have a job? I was like, no, actually, I'll be honest. My job was kind of plush in the time I committed to it. So losing my job cost me all of my free time, and now I have to do things all day long. What can you do?
Well, I'm trying to get the Hercules going for Cloudburst, so we'll see.
Dude, that's that is a meme. That's almost as much of a meme as your 3840 case. Has Matt replaced that yet?
Nope, we're another week gone.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
But we'll get him on the show next week, and we can berate him about
Yeah,
it.
you're gonna confront him face to face.
Mhm.
It's gonna be like an episode of Maury
Screen to
Povich.
screen.
Yeah. Just have him come to your house and then set up laptops like on opposite ends of the house so you don't get any echo or anything. That's my favorite part about like the weird little tidbit how this works is like we do it all from our own computers, but Shane is literally just on the other side of this wall behind my computer. So like we could just set up two mics and like both use this interface, but for some reason we treat it like we live 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, that is funny. I didn't really think about it like that.
But yeah. All right. Well, Amy, do you have anything else you want to let the people know about? Any social accounts you want to be followed at or anything like that?
I mean, go follow the Argonia Cup on Instagram. And then
Oh, yeah.
you can follow Argonia Cup on Facebook, and you can follow the Kloudbusters on Facebook.
I was going to say, I think I sent you some footage last year from the Argonia Cup launches, right? I didn't catch a ton of them, but yeah, it would be super cool to go again. I could get some good footage this year, hopefully, since I'm not freaked out about flying a 12-inch rocket this time. Hopefully, I mean, Cloudburst was big last year, too. So there was
Yeah,
a
it
lot
was.
of people.
It was
But-
gorgeous weather last year, though.
It was,
yeah. It
Except
freaked
for the
me out
last
though
day.
because I wasn't used to seeing
Yeah.
that many people there in the spring. I was like, this is crazy.
I mean, you also got to figure like college teams like bring what?
Yeah, I
20,
know, the whole
20
fleet of
people
people.
each.
But
They show
But
up in like
just the-
4 big vans
Yeah.
of like kids, and you're just like, oh my god.
he's like, who wants to go on a trip? I do.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for us. No mailbag segment this time. I didn't want to overload us with a bunch of questions and stuff too. But my name is Braden Carlson. You can find me on YouTube at Rocket Vlogs and on Instagram at BigB1011.
My name is Taylor, and you can find me on the Rocket channel on YouTube.
We are the Anti-Gravity Group. This is the Anti-Gravity Group podcast featuring Amy Howell, and we will see you guys next time.